Chapter 26, People of the Americas. The Nazca Drawings. We have been reading about the people who live in Europe, Africa, and Asia, but over on the other side of the world, other ancient civilizations lived. Like the people of ancient Africa, the people of the Americas didn't leave written records behind them, so we don't know as much about them as we know about the Egyptians, the Babylonians, the Assyrians, and the Greeks. But the people of the Americas did leave artifacts behind them, ancient buildings, ruined villages, and mysterious earth mounds. If you put your finger on the Fertile Crescent again, and this time go left, you'll go across the Mediterranean Sea and out into the Atlantic Ocean. And if you keep going across the Atlantic Ocean, you'll come to two continents, big masses of land, linked together in the middle by a narrow strip. These are the Americas. The top continent is called North America, and the bottom continent is called South America. We call the strip in the middle Central America. South America has mountains all along one edge and flat, fertile land in the middle. Tribes of ancient people lived both in the mountains and down in the jungles of the flat lands. Like the people of ancient Mesopotamia, the people of ancient South America grew crops, kept animals, hunted, and caught fish. They ate cassava, just like the people of ancient Africa. As a matter of fact, they learned how to dry cassava roots and grind them up into a powder. They use this powder to make a kind of pudding that you've probably eaten yourself, tapioca pudding. One of these South American tribes was called the Nazca. They lived along the rivers of South America in a place that is now called Peru. The Nazca left behind them one of the strangest mysteries of the ancient world. More than 2,000 years after the Nazca lived in South America, an airplane flew over Peru. The pilot looked down. He saw a drawing of a monkey, a drawing that covered hundreds of feet of ground. The lines of the drawing were scraped into the earth. From down on the ground, the drawings couldn't be seen. The lines just looked like old roads or gashes in the ground. But from up in the air, those lines made pictures. Soon flyers discovered more enormous pictures, a spider, a pelican, more than 1,000 feet tall, a hummingbird and flowers. They also found spirals, squares, and other patterns carved into the ground. There are over 300 line drawings and patterns there on the earth. Because there is very little rain in the area where the Nazca drawings were made, the lines have lasted for over 1,000 years. A highway was built across some of the drawings, and others have been damaged by cars driving across them or by people scuffing at the lines with their feet. But many of the drawings are still intact. So how did the Nazca people make these drawings? After all, they couldn't fly. They couldn't get up in the air to see what their finished drawings looked like. Making a line drawing on the ground must have been like drawing with your eyes closed. Do you think you could draw these pictures with your eyes closed? It probably wouldn't look much like a bird when you were finished. No one has been able to solve the mystery of the Nazca drawings. The best guess we can make is that the Nazca people were very good at mathematics. They could figure out how long each line should be, where it should turn, and where it should meet the next line through doing calculations. Another theory is that the Nazca artists used the position of the stars to help them with their drawings. But the Nazca civilization ended about 1,500 years ago, so we will never know the answer to this question. The heads of the Olmecs. Just above South America is Central America, which is sometimes called Mesoamerica. Earlier, we read that Mesopotamia means between the rivers, because Potamia means rivers and Meso means be between. Remember the hippopotamus? Hippo means horse, and potamus means river, so a hippopotamus is a river horse. Well, since Meso means between Mesoamerica, means between the Americas, Central America is between North America and South America. The Olmecs were the first civilization in Central America. They built a big city, now called San Lorenzo, in the country that we now call Mexico. The city stood up on top of a huge hill. The most important people, leaders, priests, and rich men lived up in the city. Poor people and farmers lived down at the foot of the hill on the plain. They grew crops on the plain and sent them up for the important people to eat. If you were an Olmec, it was much more fun to be rich than to be poor. At the center of the city, on top of the hill, the Olmecs built a huge pyramid of dirt and clay. The platform was so high that it could be seen by someone standing miles away. Every single bit of clay that was used to build the pyramid had to be hauled up the hill in baskets. The Olmecs built the dirt pyramid basketful by basketful, just like the Egyptians who built their stone pyramids by hauling stone blocks one by one. Up on top of this clay and dirt pyramid, the Olmecs built a temple to their gods. That means that the temple was the highest place in the whole city. We don't know what the Olmec gods were, but we know what they looked like. One was a snake with feathers. Another was half human, half jaguar. A third was a dwarf-like creature who lived in waterfalls. The temple of the Olmecs disappeared long, long ago, but the statues that stood around the temple still exist. They aren't statues of people, they're just statues of heads. The Olmec heads are probably sculptures of important rulers, but none of these stone rulers has a body. The heads sit directly on the ground as though an enormous stone person has been buried in the dirt up to his neck. And the heads are enormous, as big as 9 feet tall. That's taller than the biggest person you know, and probably higher than your ceiling. The eyes of the heads are bigger than your whole head. You could put your entire hand up their nose. If you were standing next to one, your head would only come up to its cheek. What if these huge heads had bodies? They would be stone giants, as tall as a 4-story building. Their hands would be big enough for you to sit on. A grown-up's head wouldn't even reach to one of their knees. The huge heads sat in a circle around the temple on top of the clay pyramid. What were they for? No one really knows. Perhaps the Olmecs, like the Egyptians, thought that their rulers were gods and wanted to honor them. Maybe they carved the giant heads to remember their rulers, the same way that we name airports and roads and buildings after our own leaders. Some archaeologists have suggested that the giant heads were used for altars or for thrones, but we will never know the answer. The Olmec heads, like the Nazca drawings, will remain mysterious.